Guys, I think Gear 5 is kind of genius. Before you go in the comments and say I'm a One Piece tard and I think it's more iconic than Super Saiyan, relax, because that's just straight up wrong. Nothing will ever be as iconic as Super Saiyan, besides Super Saiyan 2, specifically Gohan's transformation. But anyway, initially I thought Gear 5 was okay, you know what I mean? It wasn't the craziest form and was mega overhyped, but upon further analysis, and thanks to my buddy Ace, I've come to the conclusion that Gear 5 is actually the best transformation that Luffy has narratively. Before we talk about the form, we need to talk about who Nika and Joyboy are and the slow, weird build-up to Gear 5. The sun god Nika was said to be a warrior from ancient times who eventually freed the slaves that were being harmed through bringing laughter to said slaves. Now, Joyboy we will get more into later, but he's essentially just the first person to consume the Nika-inspired devil fruit, also known as the Gum Gum fruit. He took a bite of the Gum Gum. Now in Skypiea, or in Skypiea flashbacks, we see ancient Sandians, I think I'm saying it right, worshipping the sun god. If you didn't know, these are the same tribe of people we saw in Skypiea that Wiper led, which is funny because this is where the start of Nika's appearance starts being foreshadowed. The first and most obvious foreshadowed moment for Gear 5 is Luffy and the others doing that Skypiea dance that clearly resembles the pose of Nika, along with the fact that Skypiea civilians are praying for Enel to bring the sun back, which is what Luffy proceeds to do after defeating him. Freeing the people on Skypiea, along with being the natural enemy to Enel, who's trying to rule Skypiea and control it instead of freeing him. And I can't believe I'm saying this, guys, but Skypiea actually did something good and significant for the story. The next piece of foreshadow happens in Thriller Bark. Specifically, it's shown through Bink Sake. In the lyrics, we have, "If you lose your nerve, this breath could be your last. Now the waves are dancing, beat upon the drums, but if you hold on, the morning sun will rise." Please keep this bar in mind. This will be super important for later. We see the people within Thriller Bark being trapped by legit darkness and having their shadows taken. Luffy's first instinct is to free the people on Thriller Bark and give them their shadows to see the sun again, which we then see after when he defeats Moria. This is exactly what happens. The people laugh and finally see the sun again, just like what Nika was said to do. Our next piece of foreshadowing is in another Dookie One Piece arc, that being Fishman Island, or an arc that is considered Dookie like Skypiea. But funnily enough, this arc is literally regarding enslaved individuals, and the first thing that's asked to Luffy is if he's seen the sun. Then when Luffy proceeds to free said slaves, Brook at the end of the arc makes a similar pose to that of Nika. On top of this, we have Fisher Tiger, who led the Sun Pirates, basically being that ray of hope similar to how Nika was, and we see that the symbol of Fisher Tiger's crew happens to be a literal sun. The next piece of foreshadowing comes in Dressrosa, where we have Dofi mentioning how it's the era of the smile, and throughout all of Dressrosa, it's just a narrative implication that Luffy is the only person who can and will defeat Doflamingo, freeing the people of Dressrosa. And we see the most apparent foreshadowing in the arc where Gear 5 appears, that being Wano, where we see Luffy seemingly become Joyboy in his fight against Kaido. You see, Kaido is someone who believed himself to be like Joyboy and strong enough to change the world. We see him enslaving the entire country of Wano and making devil fruits that make you laugh, which is him essentially trying to be a Joyboy in a sense and bring laughter to the slaves around him, quote unquote freeing them. However, he'd then come across Luffy, who not only believed Luffy's fruit to not act like the nature of rubber, but after seemingly killing Luffy, he'd see Luffy awaken his fruit, revealed to have the Nika model devil fruit. And right before Gear 5 happens, what does Kaido say to Luffy? It appears you're not Joyboy after all. I don't remember the exact translation. I didn't write it down in the script, but you get what I mean. He's basically saying he's not him. And you guys remember when I said to keep note of those Bink Sake lyrics? Not only do they talk about Luffy freeing the people on Thriller Bark, which is just more foreshadow for Nika, obviously, but along with that, this bar for bar is describing what happened to Luffy when he underwent his awakening. If you lose your nerve, this breath could be your last. Now the waves are dancing, beat upon the drums, but if you just hold on, the morning sun will rise. Let this man Oda cook. And so you guys basically know now Gear 5 is not an asshole. It didn't come out of nowhere. It was actually built up from pretty early on in the series. But how is the form aside from that? Well, in terms of aesthetic, the only thing that might beat this form is Snake Man, but even then, I think the white drip is just too much for Snake Man to handle, bro. The whole Toon Force effects of the ability I used to not be super crazy about, but after researching and also knowing what Joyboy represents and how he's legit bringing laughter after and prevailing through the most serious situations, it does do good for the narrative, and it doesn't seem like it's just a desperate attempt to make the readers chuckle. Obviously, it isn't the funniest thing in the world, but at least for Wano, I feel like Gear 5 works very well, especially on that comedic aspect. And even when he had this crazy ability, he didn't completely stomp out Kaido. Wano in itself is Luffy legit becoming the new generation's Joyboy, so obviously the story's significance speaks for itself. Now, is Gear 5 the best transformation in fictional history? No. Is it even the best transformation in manga or anime history? Probably not. But do I find it to be a very well put together form that didn't come out of nowhere, clears Baron mode, or any Bleach form that isn't Vasto Lorde, and is the best transformation in One Piece? I'll let you decide that one.